Mr. Chair, we're ready.
It wasn't ours. It wasn't mine.
Ready to go. We ready? Yes, sir. We have a quorum? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I now call to order the Tuesday, September 14, 2021 meeting of the City of Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission. Good evening. It's good to see a lot of people here in person, so thank you everyone for taking the time to come. We've got a few special guests with us tonight. I see Councilmember Jacobson and Councilmember Watley, so thank you for joining us this evening. And we'll proceed to our business item. Item 3 is our public comment period. Anyone who desires to address the commission with regard to matters on the agenda will be received at this time. Now, a word or two of clarification. So we have two public hearings that are on the agenda, and if you want to speak to either of those items, there will be time later in the meeting to talk about those things. And just so that we're clear, one is consideration and action of a zoning change for Greatwood, and the other public hearing is for a proposed conditional use permit for the establishment of a car dealership. The item that may be of interest to some of you is the workshop item, which is review and discussion of the district at Sugar Land proposed planned development district. If you are here to comment on that item, you should comment now when I open up the public comment period, because we will not be taking comments during the presentation. The reason for that is because tonight is simply a workshop on that item. We're not voting on that item. There is nothing on that item that is set forth for consideration and action. So when we do get to that point in time further down the road, there will be a public hearing in conjunction with that item, and then you will be able to comment further. So if anyone has any comment on that item or anything else on the agenda that's not set for public hearing, now is the time to speak. Do we have anyone that would like to make public comment?
And Mr. Chair, we have no one signed up in advance of the meeting as well for public comment.
And we don't have anyone here live in the audience or online. Okay, very good. Then I will close the public hearing and we will move on to item 4A, consideration of an action on the minutes from the August 10, 2021 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Landine. Is there a second? I've got a second. Any discussion? If you'll vote at this time. I'm sorry, that was Commissioner Brown on the second. And that passes unanimously among the members present. Item 5A, public hearing. What we will do first is we will be hearing a presentation regarding the consideration and action on a recommendation for a change in zoning from interim standard single-family residential R1I to standard single-family residential R1 for the Greatwood community to members of the council. Laura, good evening. We'll hear a presentation from you, and then I'll open it. Once we've heard that, I'll open the public hearing and receive any other comments. Take it away, Laura.
Sounds great. So, as I'm sure you are all aware, Greatwood is on the south side of Sugar Land. They're at 59 near the Grand Parkway. Greatwood was annexed in 2017 and was given interim standard single-family zoning. Over the last few years, we have gone through and done all of the zoning of the non-standard areas. So that includes some some R1Z, which is zero lot line, some R3 townhomes, as well as the commercial areas. And now the last, but certainly not the least, is the standard residential. So that includes 60 plats, 12 right-of-way dedications, and 17 other parcels that are identified by deed. And you can see that on the left side of the screen there. This is the existing zoning map right now. So this is bounded by the city limits on the west, south, and east, and then US 59 runs along the north. This does include some areas that are zoned PDI from a limited purpose annexation, as well as some commercial areas, B1 and B2, and the special residential districts that are already permanently zoned of R1Z and R3. So the proposed zoning map would, in these areas that are highlighted in yellow, are proposed to be the permanent R1 standard zoning areas. The future land use map does identify this as suburban neighborhood use, which aligns with the R1 standard single-family zoning district, as well as the R1Z standard zoning that these areas are already zoned. So your points for consideration this evening, permanent zoning is addressed by state statute and is the final step in this annexation process. The proposed zoning districts match the platted and built environment as well as HOA restrictions, and it does match up with the suburban neighborhood category in the future land use map and comprehensive plan. Notification was sent out to postcards to the residents of Greatwood. You can see here the postcards. This is the front with some general FAQs, as well as a back with a little bit more detail. We also did set up a website that was specific to this rezoning to ask any questions. Or to take care of any comments. Staff did not receive any comments, however, So therefore, staff does recommend holding the public hearing and followed by discussion and consideration and action tonight. Staff does recommend an approval of the rezoning from standard interim single-family to standard permanent single-family for the Greatwood community. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you, Laura. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. We will receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on a change of zoning from interim standard single-family residential R1I to standard single-family residential R1 for the Greatwood community. Do we have anyone wishing to address the commission in public hearing?
And we do not have anyone signed up in advance, Mr. Chair.
All right, last call. All right, we will close the public hearing and move on to consideration and action. Any questions from any of the commissioners? We'll go down the line as usual if you want. Diana, anything from you?
Laura, I just want to thank you for your work on this and your evaluation and recommendation. You've done a great job. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
No further questions for me. Thank you.
Just a quick question. I thought I saw in here, this is the last item to complete the annexation?
Correct. So this will complete the annexation process and permanently zone the entire Greatwood area.
All right. No, congratulations. That's been a long time coming.
AP?
No, same. Thank you.
Taylor? All right. I think this is well done, so congratulations on the work well done. I just want to point out, so this will impact over 4,000 property owners, it looked like.
Correct.
And in getting the word out, and make sure I understood your presentation, I always like to focus on notice. So you've sent out postcards to all the impacted property owners, is that right?
Yes, so we send out postcards to all of the property owners as well as adjacent property owners within 200 feet, as well as the HOA.
Okay, and you set up a website that...
There was a website page as well as some FAQs sent to the HOA to deliver as they saw fit.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for all those efforts to communicate information to the community. I think that's always helpful, and you must have done a good job because none of the 4,000 property owners responded, so well done. All right, any other comment? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Let me see if I can get this right. Motion to recommend to council for a change of zoning from interim standard single-family residential R1I to standard single-family residential R1 for the Greatwood community to the members of City Council.
Got a motion from Commissioner Ushold. Is there a second? Got a second from Commissioner Parikh. Any other discussion? All right, if you'll please vote at this time. And that passes unanimously among the members present. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Thank you, Laura. And you don't get to leave because...
Not yet.
We'll do item 5B. This will be review of and discussion on a proposed conditional use permit for the establishment of a car dealership for Porsche Sugarland on approximately 1.110 acres located between US 90A and US 59 at the Southwest Freeway east of Derry Ashford. We'll hear your presentation and then we'll move to the public hearing.
Okay, so to start off with, a little bit about where this is. So it's a little confusing. It's in this triangle here. So this is 90A across the north, 59 comes through the south. Sugar Creek is here across from 59, and then this is Derry Ashford. So it's here in this little nook. This is the Extended Stay America and the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott. This is the previous Audi that was done through a CUP several years ago. So we're talking about this little area here. This is approximately 1.11 acres. And as has been mentioned, this is proposed to be a Porsche Sugarland dealership. Okay, so an overview, this is a currently vacant property. As I mentioned, it's between a couple of hotels. This area was annexed in 1984 with the City of Cities MUD, that includes Sugar Creek, and was zoned General Business B2. This area has remained vacant since, so it has never been developed. It's always been a small vacant area. The proposal is a 149,240 square foot facility, and it will include 233 parking spaces, 12 service bays, 4 wash detail bays, and over 11,000 square feet of showroom and sales. There is no nearby residential property, and all activity and storage of inventory is proposed to be inside the structure. The CUP does align with the future land use plan as part of the Regional Activity Center, as we'll discuss a little bit more later. So this is 3D rendering, so you can get a better idea of the scale and exactly what the proposed building is to look like. Here is the property line, kind of here where this concrete and grass edges, and along where the fence is, that's the property line. There's proposed to be a few surface parking spots, but primarily all of the parking, all of the sales, all of the service is going to be interior to the building itself. So access is from 2 existing access easements that have drives to the existing hotels in the nearby shopping center, as well as the Audi dealership. Customers can park in up to 6 surface spots, or they can use overflow parking that's inside the garage. Employee parking is also on the roof of the structure. There is a vehicle transporter circulation plan that includes entering from the US 59 frontage road onto the Marketplace access drive. It would then back into the surface lot to unload in the designated area, and then pull back out forward onto the frontage road via the access drive and Park Lane Boulevard. So here we get to the nitty-gritty, the site plan. So this is the US 59 frontage road here. We have an access easement that goes back to Extended Stay America, and then we have an access easement that goes to the Spring Hill Suites and over to Park Lane Boulevard. So the most of the traffic will be entering off of 59 onto one of these 2 access points, and then customers can enter from either end. These here are doors to the garage here. There are several doors across, several here, one here, and then another here. And then there are also the 6 surface parking spaces here. The main entrance to the first floor will be here, and then the other entrances will be internal to the building itself. Here you can also see the fencing details, the garbage dumpster enclosure to be fully masonry. And then also you can see an internal cut through of the lighting for the garage, so you can see that they do follow the full cutoff and shielding by using the architectural nature of the parking garage itself. So the interior lights of the parking garage will be shielded in accordance with the development code. Here's a basic breakdown of the floor plans, kind of what they're doing on either floor. So this green here on these floors is the showroom, proposed showroom and offices. Blue is service bays and areas. Green is further, I believe it's inventory show, and then purple is standard inventory. This top over here is the employee parking. It's all broken down over here and color-coded, so I might have misstated something. The font is a little small on the screen, but you can see it in detail on your plans. Some of these calculations do include room for future expansion, so I believe for now this is going to be inventory parking, but they did want to include some possibility for additional service space in the future as their cars are sold and then come back to be worked on. So elevations do show that this is primarily the higher quality materials. So these are the interlocking metal as well as concrete masonry units are proposed to be the exterior. This is going to match up pretty closely with what you saw at the Audi dealership several years ago. And again, this is the parking garage. You can see there have the louvers for the parking garage airflow, but other than that, it's going to be the darker colored exteriors. The landscape plan does include all of the required parking for the surface parking. There's very limited surface parking, but they do have their required frontage trees. They have also included trees along the rear and the sides in order to help mitigate some of that stark metal wall from the parking lots that are surrounding those hotels. So they have included that. That is a bit above and beyond what the code would normally require to try and help mitigate some of that impact on their close neighbors. And then the vehicle transporter circulation. So again, this is 59 frontage here, as well as 2 access easements. The vehicle carrier will turn off onto the marketplace access easement, back in, unload here in the surface parking lot, and then pull straight out to continue around the access easement to Park Lane Boulevard and back to 59. So this is an aerial to help you get a better idea of what that transporter circulation will look like. This portion will not be codified, only the previous plan will, but just to help you all understand a little bit better, we wanted to include these. So again, following this green path here, this is coming in off of 59. They would back into the site, unload here, and then pull straight through around to Park Lane Boulevard, and then come back down. This is Park Lane Boulevard. And then Park Lane Boulevard continues here, and then down back to 59, onto the 59 frontage road. So that is the primary vehicle transporter route. The future land use plan does identify this as a regional activity center. The Sugar Creek Marketplace RAC is to include mid to high-rise buildings, of which this is one. The proposed building is to be approximately 80 feet tall. The future land use plan designates this to include offices, retail, residential support, and multifamily housing. The modern design and lack of outdoor sales lots are ideal for the vision of this RAC per the future land use plan. The public hearing requirements were all met. A notification was posted in the newspaper and online, and mailers were sent out. I did post a courtesy sign on site. You can see it there in the image on the left. And there was an online form available to provide comments. Staff, however, has received no inquiries online or by phone, and we are not aware of any opposition. So your initial points for consideration tonight, this approximately 1.1 acre vacant commercial reserve is proposed to be a car dealership and was annexed vacant into the city during 1984 and is zoned general business and has stayed vacant since. The site is near properties with similar intensity, including the Audi dealership, 2 hotels, and a very large shopping center. And there are no shared property lines with single-family residential zoning. The nearest residential property is the Sugar Creek development, which is south across US 59 and past the commercial areas that surround the entrance to the neighborhood. This requested conditional use permit does appear compatible with the existing uses, and P&Z may recommend additional conditions which would ensure the property is redeveloped as proposed to mitigate any negative impacts. This does appear well-suited to the location due to it being between the two major highways of 90A and 59, and the layout plan does use existing access easements, so that would minimize impacts and traffic to the surrounding property. We do have some staff-suggested conditions. These are based on what we've seen in past dealerships that have been also edited to help fit the Porsche site because it is all internal. There is no exterior parking, so it does make it a little different from what we've seen in the past with dealerships. But the conditions do include developing in accordance with the attached exhibits, garage doors to be closed when not in operation, on-site collision repair would be prohibited, and an outside voice paging or sound systems would also be prohibited. Signs that are relating to sales that are visible from the public street would not be allowed, so you cannot use your vehicle as maybe a moving sign around the lot. Truck delivery vehicles must follow the vehicle transporter circulation plan and cannot occur outside of the site. It would have to occur only in those designated areas on the site plan and would not be allowed on the easements. It would need to follow the exact transporter plan. Additionally, directional signage would need to be provided for the vehicle transporters as well as to direct customers on site. And then we do have our applicants from Porsche and Indigo. They are on Zoom with us, so I will let them begin their presentation.
Thank you very much. My name is Lloyd Walls. I'm CEO of Indigo Auto Group. I've been operating in Houston in the automotive industry for around 20 years. Currently, we have Porsche North Houston, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, and McLaren North Houston as well, all on one campus. On the north side of town, we're thrilled that you guys are considering this site for Porsche Sugarland. We have some slides. I'm not sure exactly who's controlling them, but yeah, so this is pretty much us. We were founded in 2010. Under our Indigo's leadership, Porsche North Houston, we've become one of the top 10 dealerships in the country, growing our volume about 8 times, thus growing our revenue and tax contribution. We now operate 21 stores across the country, St. Louis, Northern California, Southern California, and here in Texas. Porsche has been awarded to us over about 2 years ago. We've been working to try to get this property secured and get a business plan put together that works for us and works for the city and the residents of Sugarland. Go ahead. We're wholly owned by Pawn, which is based out of the Netherlands. It's a family-owned business. In 2017, they purchased Indigo. They obviously have other businesses, very diversified, with over 14,000 employees and around $7 billion in global sales. Pawn's a long-term company. That's not a company that comes in. It's not private equity. They don't flip companies, so they're here to stay. Primarily focused on mobility. As you can see, with the other brands that we have, Santa Cruz Bikes, Caterpillar, Setpoint, which is based out of Louisiana as well. So we've got all types of fun businesses. Go ahead. This is kind of our footprint, which I went over a second ago. Ferrari, Porsche, St. Louis. This brand's here in Houston, Southern California, Palm Springs, Rancho Mirage, Riverside, and Northern California. This is an outline, a view of the current Porsche dealerships. North Houston is the one that you see obviously on the north. River Oaks, which will be the Momentum store will then be relocated to River Oaks, and then West Houston, and then the proposed Sugarland Point, Southwest Houston there. I have with me Mark Vanderland, who's in charge of our development. Corey's our architectural firm, and Christensen Building Group, who's been with us along the way in this pre-construction process. And then Wilson, Graves, and Gorin with our legal recommendations. So I've got Martin there in person. Martin, would you like to address?
Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
Why don't you come forward?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mr. Vanderland, and just introduce yourself and be sure to we'll get it on the record. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, first of all, thank you for having us. And I misunderstood about the in-person meeting, so that's why I'm a little late. I'm so sorry. So as soon as I found out it was actually in person, I took the car and I'm here now. So I'm happy I made it. So I helped actually executing the process and the project, and we're very excited about it. Sorry, Kelly, I didn't tell you that it's actually in person. Otherwise, I'm sure you would have been here. So, yeah. So I think this is exactly what we're doing. As you can see, I'm actually Dutch. That's my accent. So I was sent here by PON 4 years ago when we acquired Indigo, and we've been helping it to grow. And we're super excited about the opportunity in Sugarland, as we feel that Porsche would definitely fit Sugarland, and I think that would be a great combination. So we look forward to getting this project to the finish line. Thank you.
And sir, can you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Martin Vanderland.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and it's Maarten, but that's the Dutch pronunciation. Thank you very much.
Is that it for the
Yes,
presentation?
that is the applicant
Yes,
presentation.
sir. Thank you, again, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We're thrilled that the Sugarland will be one of the 195 points Porsche dealerships in the country. So, as you guys know, it's a fantastic brand. It's not your typical dealership. You definitely won't see any sale signs on the cars or anything else. And if anybody would love to see or would like to see what we do and how we do it, our Porsche store on the west side of Houston, I'd love to invite you guys up to see it at any time. At a moment's notice, I can get a tour or show anyone around that would like to see how we operate. But thank you again for the time and consideration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Appreciate your presentation. Laura, anything else? All right, this time let me open the public hearing. We will receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on a proposed conditional use permit for the establishment of a car dealership for Porsche Sugarland on approximately 1.110 acres located between US 90A and US 59, the Southwest Freeway east of Dairy Ashford. We have anyone signed up for public hearing or that would like to address the commission in public hearing?
And we have no one signed up in advance of the meeting, sir.
All right, last call for public hearing. All right, now we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to consideration and action.
Actually, sir, this is just a review and discussion.
Oh, we're
item.
just reviewing discussion, I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying that, I totally missed that. All right, review and discussion, so any discussion from the commissioners? Dan, we'll start with you.
Actually, I thought it's an attractive design. I think it's a really efficient use of the property, and I don't have any specific questions at this time.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. Yeah, quick question, or a comment, I would suppose, is a better description, is the fact that you're fitting this on a 1.1 acre piece of land was no small undertaking, and the package you provided shows a very well thought out process for ingress and egress, which I think would be a big concern for us. I do have some questions, and I want to understand better how the transport trucks get in and out. It looks like they're using a driveway that is also a customer parking area. How does that work? How do they handle conflicts, particularly as it pertains to the ADA parking that's out front?
So the plan proposal right now, Porsche allows me to schedule deliveries and pickup, or deliveries, so they don't pick any cars up from us or from the site. So if we do that prior to our opening, which will be around 7:30 in the morning, that's going to be the plan. If in fact we have late deliveries, those cars will be dropped north side of town, which is also something that Porsche allows us to manage and dictate.
Okay. And then the directional signage that would be used for the transport trucks, I'm assuming there's a standard for that and something that's more than, right? I mean, you probably do that in line with your
It's
dealer.
a nice wayfinding Porsche font to me, so it's an attractive sign. It's not a big green sign or anything. It'll be very attractive and kind of in line with the Porsche
Brand.
the Porsche spec.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, I think it looks great, and I think it'll be a great addition to Sugarland. Nice work.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yes, it's a really exciting proposal here. One question I had, we talked about the parking garage and the lighting. Does this take into effect all the garage lighting efforts that we did last year?
Yes.
Okay. That's great to hear. Glad we went through that exercise at the time. It was, I don't know why we're doing this. Now we know why. The next question I have is on flood day, where we have flooding across some of the area. How is that addressed, or is that undertaken through the pond and water feature that's there at the hard corner?
I'll have Guillermo with our engineering department come up and answer that.
All right, thanks.
Good afternoon, this is Guillermo Salcedo, Engineering Department. I did see the civil plans, and they do propose underground detention for that. They have a big detention pond with a restrictor that goes to that pond back there. But no, we don't have any additional water to that pond right now. They're retaining everything within their site.
All right. No, thank you. Thank you for answering that. And then just the last question as far as the Porsche goes, and I don't know if it's been a problem with the Audi dealership. I remember back in the day, Momentum used to have a racetrack to test drive. Are we concerned at all about Porsche test drives on 59 or Highway 90? I see our friendly law enforcement officer in the back there going, I know where I'm going to get my quota, and it's all going to be test drives. Is that addressed at all in the plans?
So it's not actually addressed in our plans. It's not something we can control because it's not specific to the site itself. In the narrative that Porsche provided, I believe it's in part of the staff report, there is a limited description of where they expect the potential test drives to be routed, which does include some of the frontage of 59. However, there is no specific mitigation criteria we can point to as a reason to add that as a I'm missing the word.
Condition?
Thank you, as a condition to the conditional use permit.
All right, no, I appreciate it, thank you. And just a tip to the Sugar Land PD, that's an easy, easy lead foot opportunity. Yeah, exactly. We'll find out what those tires will do. No, thank you.
I have a few questions. Great presentation. I think it's a really unique design and something Sugar Land probably needs. I was just curious about the service bays that you mentioned that are expandable. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of car dealerships had to do a lot of triage up front in their parking lots because they did not want people to kind of go inside the dealership. Is there any concern for lack of space, or do we have that flexibility, and would we be able to use the extra service space if we ever had to go back to something like that?
Yes, so that was part of the reason that we wanted to have them identify it as future expansion space. And because right now it could be considered vacant, or it can be used as extra inventory parking just for standard parking, or it can also be used for service in the future. So if they want to spread out, they can. If they want to add service bays, they can. But it's more flexible. That's why we had them kind of take out some of the detail that they were initially including, so that they have that flexibility.
Got it. And then the other thing I had, just curiosity, how many jobs is this going to bring to the city approximately?
This should be around 45 to 50 jobs, full-time employees, is our expectation.
That's great. And have you all done a design similar to this in other major metros? Any issues that you've seen with a self-contained design like this? Just curious.
So no, this will be our first multi-level, well, we have, that's not true. In Marin, we have a 3-story building, but this is by far the biggest, tall ones. So that we've worked over the past year or so, trying to work out all the kinks and finding the areas and walking through it and driving through it, and trying to get all the inefficiencies out of them. So, but I don't see any issues. Our only issue is if the business is so great in Sugar Land, we need to acquire more property to have more space. But hopefully that won't happen. Well, I mean, hopefully that give a little time to grow in this building.
Good problem to have. No, that was all I had. Thanks, Lauren.
Well, we'll expect you to move your
presentation.
headquarters here if that happens as well. So,
That's all right.
Thanks. Taylor?
Yeah, my question is related to signage on the structure. It's not rendered here, but I'm just curious. One, Laura, if you can speak to kind of what role we have in that, what say-so we have and what may go on the building, and then perhaps from Mr. Wolf, if you have any plans beyond what would be on the rendering.
So I can speak this a little bit. So there were some larger signs on the building, and those could have been included if they wished to codify them because they did not meet our Chapter 4 standards. However, after reading the Chapter 4 standards, they did size down their signs so that they do meet the standard regulations. So they do not need to be codified separately in the PD. That would be standard even if Porsche does outgrow this site and they move off and there's a new dealership that comes in, they would still have to meet the standard Chapter 4 signage regulations for those signs that are on the building, as well as all of the conditions that are outlined on the conditional use permit.
Great. That answers my question. So, and then the last question I had was, is there any, so you had a couple of pages there of conditions. Are those, do we feel like those are reflected in what's being presented?
Yes, so most of those are already kind of worked into the plans and the designs, especially that vehicle transporter plan. A lot of those just kind of specifically write out that, yes, this person has to follow this plan, and gives us a written condition to cite them if they do not follow the rules, basically.
Got it. And the applicant expressed a willingness to abide by those conditions?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. I had just a couple of questions for Laura or for you, or perhaps for the applicant. One is, so on the architectural site plan, item 3 is called out as a 96-inch tall iron fence. Am I reading this correctly, that that's only going to be basically around the, what I'll call the rear or the northwest side of the property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It would just be around that back side.
Okay. And on the architectural floor plan, I have a question about level 4. So I have actually a couple questions. So one is, I noticed that there's an area designated for a wash bay and a detail bay. Are there any considerations there regarding, the water, soap, whatever's used for detailing? How's that?
So that will be handled by our wastewater and, our environmental neighborhood services. It'll be standard, the same as it is with all other car washes. They'll have to detain and treat it as they would need to before they can release it into any of our supplies.
Okay. And then the second is the future. I noticed there's also a future shop expansion on that. Any idea what may be contemplated for that area? Is that just going to be, is there going to be additional?
That would be specifically just vehicle lifts. That floor is actually built a little taller, so the ceiling height is a little bit taller, but it's nothing more than vehicle lifts.
Okay. All right. Well, I concur with some of the other comments that are made. This really, really looks top-notch. It looks like a great site plan. As Commissioner Brown said, it's impressive that you can get this on a 1.1 acre facility. I think it looks really, really nice. So I have no other questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Then we will move on, and thank you, Laura, very much. Now we will move on to item 6A, workshop, review of and discussion of the district at Sugar Creek proposed planned development, district final development plan for 8 acres located along Sugar Creek Center Boulevard and Century Square Boulevard. And we've got Lauren Fair with us tonight. Good evening, Lauren.
Yep. You get
All
this.
yours.
Okay. So I am going to start out, I am here with the applicant team to talk about this at the workshop this evening. I am going to start out with just talking about where we are physically and what's around, then go into a little bit of the details on the proposal itself, and then go into a little bit of background of the guidance from the land use plan. I know some of you all were here, some of you all weren't, so go into that a little bit and how that provides us some guidance with kind of discussing this project, and then talk about a few kind of considerations that we'd like to get your feedback on tonight, and then I will hand it off to the applicant team. So we're here in Sugar Creek, actually just right down Park Lane Boulevard from the Porsche dealership. So we'll stay in the same area here. So we're located more specifically at the northwest corner of Century Square Boulevard and Sugar Creek Center Boulevard. So we're here and then over here on the zoning map. It's really nestled right in an active commercial civic center. We've got county chamber, I should say, the Chamber of Commerce over here, several office buildings all around, structured parking, the Comerica building, one of our tallest buildings in the city, the trampoline place, bank, gas station, hotels, Audi, list kind of goes on. And then across Century Square, some restaurants, some more offices, as well as services, retail. I think there's a swim school in there. So a lot of stuff going on in this center where the proposal is this evening. And then you can see in the zoning map, this is our general business zone, our office zoning, and then we've got Schlumberger and the entrance into the business park off Industrial there. So I'm just going to touch on this next slide on the future land use map and the land use plan, and then go into it a little bit more. Click the mouse. Okay. And okay. So this is in the Sugar Creek Triangle Regional Activity Center. Down here is the excerpt from the future land use plan map. In the maroon is the Sugar Creek Triangle Regional Activity Center. So it is bounded by 59 and 90. Here, more closely, this is a snippet from the land use plan itself. So our site is here that we're discussing this evening. And this is the Comerica, and then Marketplace at Sugarland, where this is where you all were just discussing, the dealership over there. So the Regional Activity Center really talks about offices, integrating into an activity center with offices, with retail, with services, hotels, and then residential components. Rental apartments, could be condos, could be your more medium, kind of medium density townhome or urban home within the activity center. It does have provisions for multifamily. I will get into those a little more in the later slides, but just to kind of touch on it, any multifamily to be part of a more mixed-use development, whether that's vertically mixed use, horizontally mixed use, and activating that pedestrian realm, incorporating structured parking, and just kind of some other parameters around that we'll touch on in a little bit here. So I'm going to jump into the development itself that we are. There we go. That we have on the workshop this evening. So it's the 8-acre property. It is being developed as 2 phases. So the phase 1 is the 6 acres that we'll be discussing in workshop this evening. That's what's going to be developed now as part of this proposal. Phase 2 is the additional acreage, which is not part of this PD submittal. There are some scenario plans for future development, kind of thinking through what could be when you kind of take a look at the size and scale of that acreage. But any development on that phase 2 acreage will have to come back forward through the full PD amendment process, full review by staff, by the commission, by council. So focusing back on phase 1 this evening, it is comprised of 384 multifamily units, a mix of studio, mostly 1-bedroom, and some 2-bedroom. It also includes 18 live-work units. So those are situated along the ground floor with non-residential on the ground floor, street-facing, either Century Square, Sugar Creek, or the internal access easement. Does include structured parking garage as part of the overall building, as well as some on-street parking as well. So this is a proposed site layout. I called it phase 1 and phase 2. It's District A and District B. So this is the area that is not included as part of this development proposal. This will come back whenever a development is ready and come back through the process. So our focus this evening will be on the 6 acres comprised here of District A. This is Sugar Creek Center Boulevard, Century Square, and then this is Park Lane Boulevard that kind of goes over towards Dairy Ashford here. This is an internal access easement that will be constructed with this development. That's really where primarily a lot of the live-work units are. They're labeled here facing the access easement, some facing Century Square Boulevard, and then the remainder here facing out towards Sugar Creek Center. We've got the parking garage anchored in here on this part of the building. an internal courtyard area for the residents with, your standard kind of pool and landscaping and seating areas. And then this area here is the amenity center, your leasing office, fitness center, those kind of things that come along with a standard kind of residential living area. This corner is with the public amenity plaza. It's about 0.1 acres here. We'll zoom in on this in another slide so you can see it a little better, but just kind of highlighting it here. So talking a little bit more about the building design, it's currently designed as 5 stories for the residential component and 6 stories for the structured parking. That's integrated into the building design, as you saw on the previous slide. Again, the live-work units are situated along that ground floor, street-facing, including some features to kind of distinguish them, but also, integrate them into the pedestrian realm there. So it includes some specific signage for the live-work units, some architectural canopies that we'll see on one of the next slides that kind of comes out onto the pedestrian realm there on the sidewalk. And then these private patios that are part of the live-work units that are also integrated into that pedestrian area. So this is conceptual design for you all to take a look at this evening. So if we're taking a look at it, where my mouse is Sugar Creek Center Boulevard. Over here where you can see the office building in the background is Century Square. And then this would be that internal access easement that would be constructed. So you can see this, some of those architectural canopies I was speaking of, kind of behind the trees here, that pedestrian frontage, the patio areas of the live-work units coming out onto that, really kind of engaging that pedestrian area there. And then where you see little seating and stuff, that's the leasing office, the amenity center, fitness center, those kind of things as part of the development, and then a kind of drive-through, drop-off area here as well. So talking a little bit about the pedestrian elements, they're primarily along the street frontages. It includes some wider public sidewalks along that internal access easement. Got tree plantings, public seating areas, some differentiating concrete colors or stamped concrete to really kind of identify it as that public space, that pedestrian space, and then integrating those live-work patio areas out onto those sidewalks and that have the seating and have the stamped concrete and have those kind of things activating that area. And then the public amenity plaza we also saw on the previous slide with tree plantings, seating spaces, some landscaping, lighting, all of that located right there along Sugar Creek Center. So let's kind of zoom in a little bit here. This is Century Square Boulevard and then Park Lane coming into that internal access drive here. So you can kind of see some labeling of some details of different planters, some tree grates, some decorative walls to kind of highlight where the live-work units are versus just kind of the normal walking space. Some seating benches, seat walls, some kind of unique ways to do seating other than just a typical bench or chair out there. The stamped concrete, that looks a little different, kind of differentiating it as well. Now over here is zoomed in on the that public plaza there on Sugar Creek Center. So they've got lighting, and they've got the patio seating, some, again, landscaping, the seat walls, the access, the kind of connection, if you will, to the sidewalk here on Sugar Creek Center, and then into the overall kind of unit itself. And then this is an exhibit in the PD document that has a kind of different perspective with some cross sections. Up here is section 1, which will take you across here. So that takes you across the access easement to get a visual of the amenity public plaza here on the corner, your landscaping, the access drive, and then this would be the front that we saw with like the leasing center, the amenity center, fitness area, all of that here. Section 2 takes you to the covered kind of drop-off area. So if you're looking here, you're really looking through that covered drop-off area to the side of the building. So You can see some of those architectural canopies already coming off the side of the building, differentiating that area. And then, focusing on the sidewalking area, the landscaping, and then you kind of get to your drive aisle. And then Section 3, which is just directly across the access easement, focusing directly on the live-work units that are street-facing there. So that's what they're showing here in Section 3. So you can kind of see some of the wall signage here and the signage underneath the canopy, kind of, again, integrating with that, integrating and activating that public space and that public realm here. So touch on the uses real quick. The live-work units have some non-residential uses proposed for the ground floor of the units. Right now, we're proposed with professional office, which is what we see in some of our standard live-work units in the city, in Lake Point specifically. And then they've also added retail neighborhood here. So that's your more kind of scaled down, smaller scale retail. Could be your general retail store, jewelry or gifts or something like that. I do have a slide at the end that's going to hit on a couple points that we do want some commission feedback on as to whether these uses themselves meet that intent of the mixed use that's outlined in the land use plan, which we're going to get into on the other slide. So that'll be part of a later slide. And then this is the scenario planning that I briefly touched on one of the earlier slides. This is that phase 2 area. So if you're looking at the exhibits here, this would be the District A with the development proposal we're talking about this evening, and then 3 different kind of scenarios for that acreage that's not part of this development. Could it be a hotel, or some additional retail or a restaurant or some more services? Or could it be another more dense use? Could it be a medium density use of maybe townhomes or something? So again, none of this is being approved with this. Ultimately, when it goes to City Council for a decision, it's just something to say, hey, this could be something we could talk about later on when a development proposal is ready. So with that, I'm going to jump into a little bit of the land use background. Spend just a few minutes here before we move on. So the land use plan was adopted in August of 2018, and it really was the culmination of a 5-year citizen-led engagement exercise, a citizen-led task force that helped guide policy direction, helped create goals, policies for those goals on how we see the city developing in the future. So 2 of those goals I want to hit on as they kind of relate to what we're talking about this evening in the workshop. One of those is goal 2, which is creating mixed-use activity centers. So this talks about actually creating them, the regional activity centers, the neighborhood activity centers that will be they'll be mixed use, they'll be walkable, they'll be bikeable, they'll be more compact, they'll have active public spaces. So that's kind of a key goal as we go through talking about this through the workshop this evening. And then goal 3, that talks about encouraging residential options. And this one is really with an understanding that, Sugar Land is predominantly single-family homes, and that we see that as being the predominant, residential component in the city, but recognizing changing demographics and changing trends, and that offering a mixture of residential options in different settings could appeal to a wider range of people. Different settings being in these activity centers. So the land use plan created 5 regional activity centers. They really are existing commercial and civic centers in the city. So this one is the Sugar Creek Triangle, Lake Point, where we are right now, Town Square. So this proposal, it does support multifamily residential development with those certain parameters. One of those being that there would be no new standalone multifamily. It must be part of a vertically mixed-use center or integrate horizontally to activate that pedestrian realm. It has the residential amenity center, the fitness center, the leasing office. So this proposal this evening for the workshop is within the Sugar Creek Triangle Regional Activity Center. It's close proximity to the highways. We saw 90 and 59. It is part of an existing commercial center, civic center, has offices, the retail, restaurants, hotels. And this use, there's a vision for the regional activity centers. And part of that is integrating in new uses into these existing commercial centers. And integrating those in is consistent with the vision. And that includes residential. Is it the rental apartments? Is it condos? Is it the townhomes? Some residential component. And this is a graphic from the land use plan that really talks about the 5 kind of pillars of when you talk about multifamily development and what that means. The far left purple one talks about caps, a cap on citywide multifamily, as well as site-specific caps that are in the specific regional activity centers themselves. When we took a look at the numbers with this project, the district at Sugar Creek, it took that citywide multifamily total to about 8.8 of the total residential in the city. And the 12% is the cap on the citywide multifamily that was ultimately approved as part of the land use plan. It does talk about site-specific guidance and limiting it to specific land use categories. And multifamily is limited to being in regional activity centers and neighborhood activity centers. Talks a little bit about design guidelines. So there are specific design elements outlined to include mix of uses, to activate pedestrian space, to really activate and integrate in with some of those existing uses. And then talking about additional studies, the school impact studies and transportation analysis and a multimodal analysis, again, to really be part of that activity center and to activate it with multimodal transportation. So those are requested to be able to evaluate those impacts. And then again, the regional activity centers, are really envisioned as a hub for the city, as a commercial and a civic hub for the city. Has a mix of uses, including the residential component, first floors, engaging pedestrians, integrating in, activating the street, activating, people being out and walking and biking. Having those pedestrian zones to include trees for shade, street furniture, lighting, cafe-style seating, again, to really activate that area. And then, as we touched on the previous slide, developments in regional activity centers will include transportation studies and school impact studies. The applicant for this proposal did take on a school impact study. It did indicate that there would be minimum impact on the local schools for this area. Also engaged in a transportation analysis, our sort of standard traffic impact analysis, but also an analysis of pedestrian network, walking, biking, as well as some future transit opportunities, which is mentioned in the land use plan with our activity centers. And I think, yep. And then I want to take a quick slide here to talk about some previous commission work. And for those of you who were on in January of 2020, you may recall we brought forward a workshop where staff was, and this was post land use plan approval, where staff sought some guidance from the commission on how are we going to implement these regional activity centers and neighborhood activity centers now post land use plan approval. It was really taking a look at what our current tools are in the development code versus what could we do. So we gathered a lot of policy level guidance that evening, but one of the key questions that staff posed as it relates to this proposal was the question I have up here. Based on the land use plan's direction for multifamily to be integrated with other uses, does incorporating a live-work component on the first floor meet this intent? And so we wanted to bring that forward again almost 2 years ago to the commission to get the feedback. And the feedback we got was yes. from the commission. If it was within a mixed-use development, if there was non-residential uses incorporated into the ground floor, if it was designed with certain design features, if it integrated into that pedestrian realm, that was the feedback that we had received at that time from the commission. I think this is my last slide, yes. So this is what I was touching on earlier with some feedback that we'd like to discuss later after the applicant presentation. So this is about the uses, the kind of non-residential uses as they relate to the live-work component. And staff would like your feedback, but we believe that, additional uses could activate and could really contribute more to the regional activity center. So is that small-scale cafe? Is that a coffee shop? Is it your kind of salon, or maybe a nail salon, or a barber shop, or a small health spa, something like that. Retail neighborhood, like I said, is currently proposed. It does include kind of a variety, general merchandise, retail stores, a clothing store, shoes, jewelry, gifts, those kind of things. And then secondly, want to talk about design features of the live-work units. How could we further distinguish them as non-residential uses on that ground floor, street-facing kind of pedestrian environment? So we believe that some more enhanced design features, maybe it's codifying larger windows or having a specific percentage of glass on the ground floor that really distinguishes it as that non-residential area on the ground floor. So would be interested in y'all's feedback on that this evening and further discussion after the applicant presentation. And I think that is my yes. So I would like to, with the chair's permission, hand it over to the applicant team here from Kaplan to say a few words.
Great.
Great.
Thank you, Lauren.
Come on. Yeah.
Come on up and introduce yourself for the record, sir.
I appreciate it. Good evening. My name is Jeff Simpson with Kaplan. My partner, Mike, was going to try to give a couple comments. I'm not sure how he does it through the Zoom. He wasn't able to make it in because of the storm. I don't know if that's possible. If not, then I can just take it from here. But is he on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There he is.
We can.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm not there in person. I'm just going to say a couple of quick, brief comments and then let Jeff kind of take it from there. But one, it's a pleasure to be here. Two, I lived in Sugar Land for 27 years, raised all my kids. They all went to
Mr. Kaplan, if I could
schools.
Mr. Kaplan, if I could interrupt you for a second, can you turn your camera on?
Ex-advisory board member at the airport.
Hey, Mr. Kaplan?
Hi.
Can you hear us in the chamber?
Is there a way you can turn your camera on, sir?
Yes.
Can you hold on for just a minute? Thomas, did you want him to introduce himself for the record?
No, I got his name for the record. I just need to get his face on the screen.
All right, give us 1 second.
Let's hope he's right.
We see you might want to move your camera down a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to try to do that. Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll sit up more erect in the chair so you.
No, we can see you fine just now.
Oh, good. So, again, you want me to start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, my name's Mike Kaplan, and hello to everybody. We're going to say a few comments and then hand it back to my partner, Jeff, but I am a ex-resident of Sugar Land. I lived there for 27 years, 1982 to 2009. I raised 4 kids. They all went to Fort Benedict School District schools. I am a ex-advisory board member at the Sugar Land Airport. And I got to tell you, Sugar Land's probably one of the finest, got to be among the top 2 or 3 finest cities I've visited as we travel around the country for our business. So I am a pretty special place. And I think we've got a very kind of high-end special project planned and look forward to explaining it to you. And Jeff, if you want to take it from here, and I'll just listen.
Sure. All right, I appreciate it. So we wanted to tell you guys just a little bit about who Kaplan is. 43-year-old company founded in 1978, locally here in Houston. As Mike mentioned, he spent 27 years in both Sugar Creek and Sweetwater. I actually spent a decade in Greatwood as well. All kids attended Fort Bend County schools, and as Mike mentioned, been involved in the community Sugar Land Airport. The next slide is a little bit about our architect, Johnson Design Group. Also local, Houston, 11-year-old company. Warren, Mr. Johnson, lives in Meadows Place for 20 years. His kids go to parochial schools in Sugar Land, and he's a member of a church here in Sugar Land. Also, Warren has been involved in the following projects, which I won't list them all because I want to respect everybody's time. But I guess what I'm trying to impart here is that we know Sugar Land, we've lived in Sugar Land, we respect Sugar Land, we understand the character and the intent and the very careful planning and growth that the city has always had, and that's what really makes it a special place. And so I was looking back through the notes, and it's hard to believe that we actually started talking with staff in like late 2019. And then thanks to COVID and really the patience and the help of staff to guide us through a new plan, through many iterations of what we think now meets the intent, which we understand is very important. Here we are now, well over 2 years later. I wanted to tell you just a little bit about what we build. So, in general, one of the things, no matter where we are, we build best in class. So our starting place is, what's the best project in a particular area? How can we do better? How can we incorporate all of the elements of both the micro and the macro markets? And we think about words like, when it comes to our architecture, we're timeless. We don't go with fatty type architecture that in 10 years is going to be, gone. And we look for things that are additive and appropriate to both the micro market around where the project will be, as well as the macro, which would be the city. And there's a couple of our buildings up there. The one on the left is District Greenbrier, which is over in the Southampton area, and the one on the right is District Scottsdale, which is across from the Scottsdale quarter. Just a couple more examples, just because in case you all don't know us. The one on the left we actually did in Sandy, Utah. Again, we spent time figuring out exactly what was appropriate for the area. You can see it's heavy masonry, timeless architecture. The interesting thing about that one was we actually bought that land from the city, and it was adjacent to the town hall. So all of the staff, the council members, the mayor, the employees, everybody walked by it, including the inspectors, every day on their way to work, and we got along great. And it turned out to be a great project, and in fact, we put a time-lapse camera up when we're doing our developments, and that was actually placed on the top of the city hall. The one on the right is another one we did in the Biltmore area in Phoenix. And that's just to show you, we try to incorporate elements into our projects that will bring both residents and patrons and office users, et cetera, together to socialize and use the amenities and sort of activate the area. The next one, just sort of a couple of snapshots of some of our interiors. This is really where we kind of stand out. Like for instance, you'll notice that we use the granite or the quartz. We use waterfall edges on the islands. This particular project had gas. All of the appliances are extremely high-end. Actually, they're nicer than the ones I have in my home. That one actually has a Keurig machine in the freezer, so you can actually make your coffee and set it to go off using your iPhone, so it'll be ready for you when you get home or when you want to wake up. On the right, you can see we always put double vanity sinks, frameless glass showers, large walk-in closets with wood shelving, just the highest end finishes for our residents, which the goal is to attract high-end, high-income and educated professionals. I think you saw in the school analysis the particular mix that we did here and the particular demographic that we're targeting. I think there was a total of less than 30 additional students to both the elementary, middle, and high schools. And if you actually work that out on how much just we're going to spend on the project times what goes into Fort Bend County Schools, it's about $40,000 a student. So we think that's additive. It's kind of a fun slide. One of the things we started doing, actually back at that Park at City Center deal in Sandy, Utah, was starting adding sports simulators. The first one we did was simply golf. The ones we do now include soccer, skeet, baseball. Just, it's pretty incredible, and they're very, very well used. Again, trying to get the community together in there to use those. Our sports facility, or our gym, if you will. Most gyms they almost look like an afterthought. Ours are 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. They would rival an Equinox type environment. You've got towels, you've got water, lockers. So it's again, reduces traffic. People don't need to go to their gym. They come work out there. It adds to a sense of community. And that's really it. I wanted to try to keep it kind of brief. Oh, well, this is an important slide, though. So the one on the left is a deal we did in Austin. It was a LEED green deal. One of the things that we are very careful about is to try to be as minimal, impactful to the environment as possible. On that one, we achieved the LEED green status. The one on the right is actually one we did in the Southampton neighborhood district, Greenbrier, which is not the easiest one. That was actually, we were putting that one together at the same time the Ashby was going up, so we managed to not get very many complaints. But there was a tree that we actually managed to, we hired an arborist and maintained it, and it became a focal part of one of the two courtyards in that. That became our Zen garden. Well, but I hope that gives you a little bit of flavor of who we are, where we're from, how we understand the city, and we look forward to working with you guys as we go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lauren, anything else?
Nope, I'll just kind of open it up. We can start workshop discussion.
Okay, we'll start our workshop at this time, and we're just doing review and discussion of the District of Sugar Land Proposed Plan Development District Final Development Plan. We're not taking any formal action tonight other than review and discussion, so we'll do it in our normal course and kind of go up and down the line. Dan, we'll start with you.
Well, most of my questions were answered during the presentation, but I was curious as far as the number of studio versus one-bedroom versus two-bedroom units that are planned. If that was in the details, I must have missed that.
Yeah, come on up.
You need to come up to the front again, sir. Put you on the hot seat.
Sorry. Maybe I'll sit a little closer.
Yeah, sit up here with me.
It is actually detailed in the report. I just want to get the numbers 100% right, but our emphasis was on studios and ones, and basically to minimize the impact on schools was one of the main things. I'm trying to find the page. It's about 6% studios. Where is it, Lauren? I just saw it. Thanks. Yeah, so there's 29 studios, 282 one-bedrooms, and 73 2 bedrooms. So again, it's a high emphasis on around 75, 78% ones and studios.
And the reason I was asking is because of the impact to the schools and your analysis that you did there, because 30 students, obviously, that's not very many. So I didn't know what assumptions you had around.
I took our cost and the mill rate and divided by the number of students, yeah. So it's roughly about $1,150,000 a year that we'll be paying into the Fort Bend County School District.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Chuck, go ahead.
Good deal. You put a lot of thought into this. Thank you. It looks very nice. I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
My daughter lives in a very similar development in Fort Worth. It's a building full of people with dogs and a 10-by-10 green area for dogs to be walked. I don't see a lot of space on your plans. What are your contingencies for that?
Actually, we have a area designated. It's probably not detailed, and we can certainly get back to you on that. Warren, you're welcome to speak to it, but we understand that everybody needs dog parks. We're very sensitive to using the right type of turf, having the little bags, we have breed restrictions, et cetera. But the whole idea is to make sure that there is a place for them to go, because because we have this pedestrian access easement, and the whole theme and feel of that will be like you're walking around here. You've got the shop windows, and the building is set back a little bit beyond that, so it feels like you're walking down as it should to activate the area, walking down a streetscape of retail. And we certainly don't want that littered with litter.
Yep, gotcha. Electric vehicle consideration.
Yes, sir.
Are you doing any infrastructure to support EVs?
We absolutely are. We have at least 2 to 3 electric vehicle charging stations on each floor of the garage. We will build in the infrastructure for the expansion and capacity of that, so that nothing has to get torn up. Essentially, as more people come in with electric vehicles, which we know, it's interesting because, stop me if I go too long, but I can kind of geek out on this stuff. But the Apartment Association actually says, we should stop building big garages. We should stop building so many parking spaces, et cetera, because everyone's going to be driving electric vehicles or taking public transportation, et cetera, later. Well, we found that if you don't have a good ratio, 1.7 to 1.8 of parking stalls per, then you're going to be under parked.
Because I imagine the tenant you're going to attract here would be the person that might have an electric vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Is
Yes.
kind of why my question was.
Yeah,
was
the
there.
young professional is more than likely, yes, going to.
You're going to have 18 live work spaces.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to assume you've done your homework. There's a reason you came up with that number? Was it a square footage deal, or do you know what type of tenant you're going to have? What kind of got you to that point?
Well, the intent was to have them line the active part of the site. So the west and the northern parts back up to an existing building and an existing center. So in bifurcating District A and District B and putting the road through there, that is the active area, and that is the number of units it took to activate that street. Having them face inward or face nowhere doesn't really, I think, accomplish that goal.
And for staff, as you look at these live work spaces, and there was commentary on this maybe is good for a restaurant or a salon, seating is going to be an issue. If these are small spaces, are we going to have, or will there be considerations for perhaps exterior seating, or how are you going to address that?
I mean, there's definitely room. I think that's part of, it's really an idea of how does it make sense as part of the activity center? How does this become more of that vertically integrated mixed use? How do we get more activity here? How do we bring kind of the folks from maybe across that are in the offices that want a place like that they can walk across? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some room. That's part of the wire sidewalks and kind of going through that exercise.
I think some of that, I mean, if you get a couple of those in there, suddenly
Sure.
you've taken up all your seating, right? So.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Y'all have some live work here already, and I've got a list that would take me too long to read of all the different uses that you can do. Everything from financial planners to, for instance, coffee shops, things like that. The idea that Lupe Tortillas is going to go there, obviously, no. Right. But it's things that would bring people from the offices into the area, from the residences into the area, and they actually all have a door that opens up onto the streetscape.
And keep in mind, we have the exhibit with the proposed uses where we can add conditions. We can talk about what maybe makes sense, if there's parameters around some of those, like you're saying, it's not going to be a Lupe.
Does it sound like these live workspaces may not be necessarily destination locations, but more of an amenity to the neighborhood kind of thing? Is that?
Sort of. I mean, I think some of them a destination would be, if you're going to go see your financial planner, then you're going to do it is in terms of like, if one of the folks in the office building, if they need to come in and grab a sandwich for lunch, there happens to not be a place in that office building to do that. So they can run over there and grab a sandwich. It would be pre-prepared. They're not set up to have big commercial kitchens, et cetera. But they're, the main thing is to be more inclusive in the uses with practical constraints, and then focus on the things that we want to exclude, adult themes, things like that.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Andy?
I also kind of geek out about this kind of stuff. This is years ago when they asked if I wanted to do this. This was why I wanted to do this. A couple of things, and I'm going to skip around a little bit. Are you going to look for this to be a lead build?
Interestingly enough, the current energy code, and Warren, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current energy code basically gets you to lead green. It's not something that we can certainly talk about it. It wouldn't cost us much more other than the administration and testing. Mm-hmm. In our experience in doing that, the residents didn't really appreciate or cause much of a difference for it.
Sure.
But the current building code for appliances and all of it, it basically...
You're going to get to a certified level anyway, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are the units going to be individually owned, or will they be owned by the development?
They will be owned by the development.
Okay.
Yes. And managed.
Okay. One of the things, and I think this goes back to the live-work concept, and I still get caught up on this a little bit because I know what we're trying to achieve, and when we start talking about smaller live-work concepts, I think sometimes we overly limit ourselves with this by saying it's going to be a small one-person financial planner shop and things like that. And I know you have the Plan B or the Phase B to come up alongside that, but I'm trying to figure out within this environment how we're spurring pedestrian activity around this area. And I don't really see that in your plans. It looks like a great place to live if you're looking for an apartment, but as far as becoming part of the overall activity center, I don't see how it integrates in with that.
Sure. The list of things that you could have in the work that would be practical here: art studio, wedding planners, bridal shop, chiropractor's office, pre-prepared food store, small gift shop, flower shop, yoga, clothing boutique, photography studio, coffee shop, jewelry making.
No, and I understand that we've got 18 of those. What I'm trying to figure out is that overall in that triangle, in our Sugar Creek triangle, how does this project integrate in with the rest of the triangle? So our building over here right behind us integrates, pretty obviously right into the flow of everything else. You've got streets in the way, you've got some other limitations. How do you integrate in with the rest of the triangle?
Warren, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Warren Johnson. Good evening. I think we're trying to make this as walkable as possible in our own area. We're not responsible for across the street or whatever, but if we can draw people in with a more walkable facade and shops and make that happen. That's why we don't put, for instance, that's why we don't put hidden parking in that area, because it separates you from the street. It makes the sidewalk smaller. We want to expand that area, put parallel parking right there, put nice trees. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And we're trying to create an environment within what we can do in that one area along the PAE that creates, maybe it's only half the thing we want to get to, but it's or even 3/4, but it's pretty far along down that path, right? So there are other factors in the neighborhood that will have to work in eventually, and we talked about buses and different types of things too.
Yeah, and no, they're right on track there. As we talk about development in activity centers, we're not talking about greenfield development. We're talking about infill and how do we meet, like to your question, all the things we want to achieve in these activity centers. And some of that was what we discussed with the commission in that workshop in January of last year is maybe one development isn't going to bring it all. Maybe it's an incremental kind of approach to how we ultimately redevelop and develop within these activity centers. And that's not just specific to the Sugar Creek Triangle. I think that's going to be seen as we kind of go through implementing the land use plan. But to what we're talking about here, yeah, it's really how can they open up that pedestrian area? How do we have the wider sidewalks? Do they connect out to Century Square? Can they connect across?
And I'm just thinking, if I worked at the Comerica building, are we going to integrate in pathways for me to be able to go from that? As many of us know that have done the hike and bike surveys, you can't walk through Sugar Land. Will we be able to walk from this to that building to go to work? Or if I woke up early and wanted to go to the breakfast place that's there on the corner, can I walk there? Or heaven forbid, Arton, our new Porsche dealership goes up there, and I want to go buy a Porsche, and I don't have a car. Can I walk over to the Porsche dealership effectively and go buy a Porsche?
If it's an electric.
I think he has an electric Porsche now.
There is, yeah.
And some of that is also being addressed through the study that is required in these activity centers, the multimodal study. And I know our team is still engaging with their traffic consultant team on some of that as we fine tune. So I think we could probably bring back a little more detail on that at the public hearing, as we're, like I said, continuing to kind of fine tune some of those more transportation multimodal studies. So I would be happy.
Yeah, I know that you're not going to have a lot of kids in this center, but if they're like mine, they want to go to that trampoline park right behind you. Can they walk from this place to the trampoline park?
Yeah.
I don't know, this is more a Lauren question maybe than the development question, but one of the things that, as we talked about multifamily, is that when it gets built, it's incorporated into those. So I just want to make sure we're addressing that nature of it instead of just saying, hey, look, this is a great plan, I'd love to live here, but it doesn't really meld all that back in together.
Right, and you've hit the nail on the head with exactly what, the activity centers. It's integrating in, it's being part of that existing commercial and civic kind of hub and adding to that part of it. So we'll definitely bring back a little more detail on that from the studies.
And there's some things we can work on, some very simple low-hanging fruit things, striping. The District of Greenbrier project I mentioned in Southampton, they were concerned about the same thing. They have a bunch of houses around there, kids running out in the street, et cetera. One of the things they wanted us to put up a sign that says your speed is, just to remind people to slow down. So those kinds of things we're completely open to working with the city on. If the city works with us, we're happy.
Yeah, and you do quality work. That part's not the question. That's already assumed that you're going to continue to do the quality work with this project. I just want to make sure we get that. The last thing is, it does look fantastic. Are the amenities open to the general public, or do you have to be a resident?
Actually, in most of ours, we allow for instance, our Equinox style gyms, the surrounding areas are more than welcome.
By day pass or whatever to come and?
Yes, sir.
All right, no, fantastic. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. AP?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Again, applaud you all for such an ambitious project and a really detailed presentation. I echo a lot of Andy's comments on the integration part. The two things that I had curiosities on were the mix of the units, and I understand and very sensitive to the impact on schools needing to be minimized. But in terms of having so many one-bedrooms, was there a feasibility study that you can share that supports leasing of that level of one-bedrooms and along with the live-work piece, which is a completely separate item? But I'm just curious on, I know wanting to work backwards into kind of making sure that we minimize the school impact, but just overall on the
Yes.
one-bedrooms.
We did a complete study for the school analysis. We'd be happy to provide that to you as well as the multimodal analysis. And we have plenty of our market studies that drove us in a direction of this mix, not just for schools, but for based on the demographics around there, which is, as you head kind of further south down 59, it's more two bedrooms. You think more families, et cetera. When you are over in this area, it's more young professionals, and especially given the access to the Beltway and, the major business centers around.
Excellent.
Yes,
Yeah, I'd love to see those studies. The other question I had was around parking. So the covered or the structure of the park, that covers all the residents plus the live work. The surface parking, are there any reserved spaces for the live work folks, or is that open to the retail kind of mixed use element of this? I think there's 54 surface off-street, and then there's no on-street surface parking. But just curious on the surface level parking, if there's any element of reserved for the live work folks there, or is it all open?
Well, I'll let y'all talk about how you're doing the parking. I think, the live work is the one on the street. That those are open. I mean, those are for the folks that are going to be going to
Patrons.
one of those
Patrons.
Yeah.
Patrons.
For the business,
And additionally, and I thought that the write-up did a pretty good job of talking about this, your write-up, but, the nature of when visitors for the residents are going to be there and parking in the parking garage for visitor versus the time of day of when somebody's going to be a patron of the live work are almost polar opposites. So there is some shared parking element in that. Not only are there spaces for somebody to pull up to the business, but if those spaces are full, they're welcome to come down and park in our garage. If it's 120 degrees outside, they may want to, and then walk over to the business.
Okay. I appreciate that. Now, that was all I had, Matt.
Thanks. Taylor?
Yeah, so Lauren, I want to talk directly to your question that you put to us, which is, do we think this meets the intent of the creating does the live work component meet the intent of creating that integrated development? And I think the answer is yes. I would like to see perhaps some pushing of that envelope to increase some of the intensity of uses so that we have a better opportunity to maybe see more and more activity in the center. So I would be, that would be my preference. And then question about, and this speaks to some of the intensity, I've seen developments like this in other places. They have an anchor tenant. Maybe on the corner here of the development. Is that something that you all considered, speaking to the applicants, that you all considered as a part of this? Whether it be a restaurant, I've seen anchor retail, and part of, and I'll harken back to the land use process. One of the goals of that process was to create a livable area, and when you think about something like this, I'll use a CVS as an example, right? Sure. That's a neighborhood amenity that a resident could use, and others, of course, as well. But can you just speak to whether it's a restaurant or a retail component? Did you all consider the integration of an anchor tenant or two to this development?
We didn't, in District A. Of course, that could materialize in District B, but, part of the bifurcation between District A and B is nobody could build B today or anytime, certainly not today, without having the 500 to 650 people living there that could frequent that. In terms of an anchor, like, for instance, on that, hard corner, I think that the the floor plates, if you will, of the work don't really lend well to an anchor-type tenant. Certainly you could have a compound pharmacy, but it's not going to be a CVS. Sure. But yeah, that would be difficult. I think that it probably is more, as Lauren mentioned, a stepwise activization as opposed to we're going to come in here and it's going to just be active. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'll, and just speaking as, in my capacity as a single commissioner, if you guys wanted to explore that possibility, I think me personally would be open to that possibility, and I would imagine it without knowing anything about how the economics work, it could help. So, and then the other, I wanted to ask about the live work and maybe understand a little bit better about how these are actually designed. You mentioned that they all have entrance, exit onto the street. If I live in one of those units, I have access inside of the unit up to my living quarters. Is that right?
You as a tenant do, but nobody can go upstairs. I mean,
Sure.
and there's also another entry, a normal entry on the second level for them, for the upstairs residents.
Does
So
that
essentially the bottom floor
Bottom floor is all.
is your retail.
is
office.
self-contained? So I walk out, if I own the place, or if I live there and work there, I walk out the front door and onto the street and then go as if I'm walking into the apartment.
Well, if it's a Saturday and you're closed, or Sunday and you're closed, you're living upstairs.
Right.
And you would open up into the conditioned hallway, walk to the garage, get in your car and drive off. Unless you wanted to go out and walk your dog, in which case you'd go down into the space you
Yeah.
rent already that's vacant and walk out the front door.
Gotcha. Okay. For whatever reason, that's hard for me to visualize how those.
You're asking, is there internal access between the floors?
Work below, live above, but live above is essentially, you have a residence on the second floor that opens up into
And do you have interior access
Yes.
from the work up to the living?
There's a stair.
Without, are you in your unit the whole time?
Yeah.
No, it's not like a
interior.
loft or anything like that. It's a secure stairway up to your living unit. And so think of it like this.
That only you have
street-
access to.
If the street is a public space and the residence is a private space, this is kind of a semi-private, semi-public space where
Okay.
they mix.
Yeah, but you'll have, if, for instance, if you were in that unit and you were running your business downstairs and you closed up for the night, you'd close your front door, and then you would go to your stairwell, you would unlock it, let yourself in, walk up the stairs, and it would shut behind you and lock.
Gotcha.
And then you wouldn't need to go back downstairs unless you wanted to. You could exit through the corridor. And
Got it. Sorry, I'm being dense on this point.
I like geeking out about it. It's okay.
No, it's a good question, because I thought, and I don't think that was the intent, I thought I heard in there too, you can't access the living space from the workspace.
Yeah, and I guess part of it too would be, if there is a more high-intensity use, everybody loves to use the example of a coffee shop. So, if that has operation hours from, let's say, 7 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., and I live upstairs, that says something about what would be an acceptable use for what's below me, right? Do I actually want that underneath me? And so that's in part what's leading to the question.
You would if you were the person who's relying on the revenue you're generating downstairs.
No doubt. And that's a good segue to my next question is how does it work in terms of subletting the work
That's
component?
a very good question, and that's something we're still working with staff on. There'll be essentially a set of like CC&Rs, if you will, or whatever, when somebody signs a lease. It's when you're going to put your name up on there, you can't use bright pink neon or whatever. It's got to be this font, this letters, this wide, whatever. So it's all uniform. Again, we're not trying to create an eclectic South Austin feel there. We're trying to create a very cool.
I'm a Longhorn, be careful.
Hey, me too. I'm still hurting from last weekend, I understand. Although my first semester I was at the University of Arkansas, I was a little torn. But, yeah, but that is the idea, is there will be a set of rules, restrictions, et cetera, for any live-work tenant that is going to live there, and what type of businesses they can't do, what type of business we will encourage them to do. And we do want to encourage them to be more inclusive, more active, type uses. But there is some level of practicality. Can't be loopies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, in y'all's experience in other places, do you see turnover in these? I mean, is it a...
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, if we could do the entire perimeter with live work, I'd do it. I just
Why don't
think,
you?
Well, because of what surrounds those two other sides.
Yeah, it doesn't work from a retail standpoint.
Again, for Lauren mentioned, I thought it was a good point. It's not greenfield in the sense that we're coming, because we actually have existing structures.
What's immediately to the north, just out of curiosity?
So that's a law firm that is going to have some
Oh, yeah,
other
yeah.
out tracks with some development on
That's
there.
right, that's right. Muller's Place. Yeah.
But to turnover, which is other than taxes, one of our largest costs, the live work people don't leave. So, we love that.
So you want you obviously want the retail because it's generating, well,
they get to keep the money, they just pay us rent.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is that, I mean, in a strictly multifamily property, 60% of the building turns over every year. That's a lot of carpets, a lot of paint, a lot of, money. And for somebody to rent something for less than...
The live work units also are becoming an amenity for the folks that live at the apartment, because they have a coffee shop, a drop-off laundry facility, not where they actually process the clothes, drop off and pick up, salons, small businesses, all those things become retail uses that our residents can take advantage of, so it becomes an amenity.
Yep. No, that all makes sense. Well, I hope none of my questions were sounding a skeptical tone. I really applaud you guys for bringing this forward. This is it takes guts to put this much time, energy, effort into something like this, knowing that you've got to, although the P&Z gauntlet may not be what it once was, we prepared. Come on. No. I mean that in honor of our friend Carl.
I'm going to send him everything.
But no, really, I think that this represents the incremental steps. It takes us in the right direction, and would really I encourage all of us to keep being constructive with the applicants, the staff, the public, to make sure that we get this right, so that the next folks that want to come in can actually, hopefully this experience will encourage others to bring creative and thoughtful developments forward. So, again, applaud you guys and look forward to next steps.
And I don't want to sound trite, but the whole point of, we've lived here and et cetera and know the city, it's really one of the more fun projects I've ever worked on, because I've always thought of this as such a great place, and I want a great place to develop.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask one quick to piggyback?
Sure, I'm done. Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Commissioner Landon's comment. What do you do if you have a tenant that's got a live work downstairs? He's got a year-long lease with you, and 4 months into it, he's no longer viable as a business. How do you handle that?
What do you mean, if he's in trouble financially?
Yeah, his business model doesn't.
You know what? We probably work some sort of termination for him, because I don't know what the benefit is. And in our rules and regulations, those live work tenants will not be able to go dark. So, no dark stores, if you will. Does that help?
Well, I understand a no dark provision, but if you've got someone that goes in and opens up something that 4 months into it, he cannot financially, or she cannot financially sustain that business. The idea is we would want a business in there that is viable. You don't have to answer tonight, but would there be a contingency or a plan for something along those lines.
It's more important for the development and more important for us to let somebody like that out of their lease and release
Yeah.
it to an active user.
Okay.
I think it's better for, well, it's better for all of us.
Yeah, I think we really see this space as a business retail space first, and living accommodations upstairs as secondary to the purpose of the space.
So maybe there's an addendum that goes into that lease that says that if you have to shut your business down, then you're out of your lease.
Yeah.
We don't penalize you for leaving early.
Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
Lauren, this is for you. I seem to recall you saying that this would put us at 8.8%. What is it, what are we before? I mean, I guess I could try to work backwards with the math.
Yeah. It was just around that, like, just below 8.8.
Okay, so I guess the way my question was is that we have a couple more of these type of projects we want to encourage. Just wanted to make sure that we had room within our 12%.
Because the percentage is based on multifamily versus single-family, and there's still additional single-family being developed in the city, so it's kind of like a incremental rising of both, or of one, really, of more single-families come online. So that's kind of how in layman's terms, very simply, that's how the
And there's
calculation's done.
space within the remaining 4 regional.
Right, and so each activity
Yes,
center.
and that was more the question, is
Yes.
if we're looking for multifamily to fit into this type of environment, do we still have room to do that
Right,
in
yes,
our
and
other
each,
developments?
right, and as you know, each center has its own unit cap as well, yes, and we're within that, yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Matt.
Yep, you bet. The good news about letting other people jump in with questions is that means most of mine get asked and answered. But I have just a couple more additional things. First of all, to comment on, just to add on to what Commissioner Landine said, I'm really glad that you guys have experience in Sugar Land. I'm glad that you've lived in the community. I'm glad that you're familiar with the community. I'm glad you're sensitive to the issues that go along with a project like that and the impact on the existing residents and on existing businesses and things. I think it's really, really important to get this one right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And, from everything that I can see here, it looks like you put a lot of time and effort into it, and it looks like you're well on your way to the right track. So I appreciate that. And just a couple of questions. Have the school studies already been done, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I don't think we've seen that, but that's something we'll get at.
No,
we want to
if
look
you all
at it.
want to see it, we can certainly include it with the public hearing material.
All right, what about the traffic? What about a traffic
Yeah,
impact?
so that's still underway. Our traffic engineers are still working with their traffic consultants. It's
think they're on the line.
pretty well underway. Oh, they may be on the line if you have specific questions. But yeah, it's well underway. There's some mitigation they've already kind of talked about, turn lanes and decel lanes and things that are going to happen as far as traffic on Century Square and stuff.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, one of the renderings showed the addition, I think, of a right turn lane into the front of it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and so the traffic study is being conducted.
Yep.
We'll have the results of that. That'll be
Right.
available for
It's
people to
still-
see
sure,
and
sure.
talk about as
Yep.
well.
It's actually done.
I think that's important.
Almost, yeah.
And I need to get a little bit of an understanding about, I mean, I understand the District A and District B, but I want to be really, really clear. In what would be proposed for the conditional use permit for A, are we doing anything?
Plan
that
Development District.
Excuse me? I'm
Plan
sorry.
Development
I'm sorry, Plan Development, my bad. I'm still stuck on I'm still
okay.
thinking about electric
Still thinking about a
Porsches.
Porsche, right?
Yeah, I apologize. Is there anything that we would be doing in A that impacts B? Or is B completely tabula rasa and everything within that, just we deal with that on another day?
Right. The scenarios were something that staff really worked with the property owner, who's going to maintain ownership of District B on understanding what could be. I mean, it's a smaller site. It's already pinned in by streets. It's going to be pinned in by 3 streets, really. So it was just an exercise to kind of see what would fit, especially this being in an activity center, what could fit here. But yes, nothing in this planned development district authorizes anything on that acreage.
Right, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't authorize the creation of it, and it doesn't authorize anything on it. That would
Right, it
be-
just authorizes that it has to come back forward to get
Right,
authorized.
right, that
Yes.
it's, that it remains.
Role play
Yes.
as many different optionalities and think about A relative to B so that there's more optionality on B.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm driving at. I'm making sure that nothing, and again, I understand we're not considering anything, but the intent is that nothing that we're going to do with A is going, we're just going to focus the effort on A, and B is completely separate.
Our fantastic land seller who's in the room and has also been a childhood friend of Mike's since he was 6, wouldn't let us.
Okay.
Hey, can I
Okay.
ask a question on that?
Yeah, we've been friends now for 20 years.
Can you, or are you willing to share, do you have the vertical development rights on that land?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Maybe we should ask for them.
And a couple of things, and I think these are going to be for you, Lauren. You answered the question about the 8.8%, so that means that there is still available, there's
Citywide.
still availability under the citywide cap, if you will, for the development of additional multifamily and other locations.
Right, in the
Okay.
other activity centers, yeah.
All right. And, with respect to the January 2020 workshop, I was really trying to remember that and candidly don't. That we were in a little bit of a different place in January 2020.
Sure.
But, and I think, Taylor, I think you were getting at that as well. I mean, personally, and I'm only speaking personally now, I can see that the live-work component is part of that, but I don't know that it completes the square in and of itself. If you think about the idea of all the things that you want in an activity center, and you want that to be, truly something, again, and I get that it's going to be great amenities for the people living there, and I appreciate the fact that some of that is going to have availability and access, but, when you think about mixed use, I think you do think of a little bit more than just the multifamily and then live work, so, that comment has already been made, and I would add to it, I think it satisfies it, I would say, in part, and I appreciate your openness to, to explore other things as well. And then, Lauren, you had a slide on requested feedback.
Yes.
Is that feedback that you've already provided?
So the other part, there's two parts of it. One was the uses, and I think we've kind of talked through that, and that gives us some really good direction to go back and work with the team. The other part was the design element. That really is one of those pillars when we looked at that colorful drawing from the land use plan. Specific design features is really a key of how the land use plan provides guidance for how residential works in an activity center. And so some of that can be done, like you see the townhomes in Lake Point, and they have, steps and stoops that come down. And so do y'all feel that there's additional things? Is that something you want us to take back and discuss with them? Is there a percentage of the glass? I mean, I know they talked about having it that way, so is that something we want in the PD, a specific percentage of,
Well, there was a comment there
differentiating it?
about retail specifically as well,
Yeah,
right?
We
And,
want it to look like a retail front, so
Right.
it's going to be storefront glass. It's not going to be residential type glass, so you can put it
okay,
in there.
and so, and that goes back to the distinction between the live work and the
Correct.
Yes, sir.
the rest.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's all I had. Really, really, really well done. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, anything else? Okay, thank you very much, we appreciate it. Let's move on to our next item of business, which is 7A, reports. Planning and Zoning Commission liaison reports. And we've got a few commissioners out tonight, but did anyone here cover the August 3rd City Council meeting? How about August 17th? How about? It's going to be a short report tonight. How about August 24th? All right, I had the September 7th meeting. I will report that I don't believe there were any items at that meeting that were pertinent to planning and zoning. There were a couple of recognitions. There were a couple of contracts approved. There was an executive session. I didn't see anything that was that involved any of our prior work. And I did attend the 9-minute city council special meeting tonight as one of my September meetings. I'll report on that next time. Item B, city staff report. Seven B. Doug?
Yes, sir. Looking at next week and based on where we're at, and especially post-storm here, we do not anticipate having next week's meeting. So that'll be a little break, and we'll reconvene in October. Anticipate the Porsche dealership will be able to bring that right back for that with some finishing up. That's all we have. We appreciate it and glad everybody's safe.
Thank you very much, Doug. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? I've got a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? I've got a second. That motion passes. We are adjourned.